says that laughter is good for the soul, but comedy also sheds light on everyday concerns that impact our communities. And female comedians are using laughter as a form of expression and empowerment. Hello there and welcome to Our Voices. I am Orion Itangishaka. I am joined by my co-host Seminesh Yakoye. Amina Elihu is off today. Joining us here in the studio is our comedian here and singer from the DC area, Anna Mulwago. And later on the program, we will also have with us none other than Tumi Morake from South Africa. She will be here with us, so make sure you stay put. Anna, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you.
It's a pleasure. And since it's a show about comedy, why don't we start with one? Can you share with us a quick comedy or maybe something memorable from your career, anything that makes us laugh?
Wow. You see, the thing is, you already put me on spot in the morning, and I was complaining. I said, I need tea. But I always, when I do my comedy shows, I always have this one that I think touches the African woman. Okay. And I say, it's a great time to be an African or black woman in America because everything African is in high demand. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they don't get it. I'm like, when I was growing up, I never thought I was beautiful. Matter of fact, even the people I saw in magazines did not resemble me. Some of them I could not tell their front from their backs. And my friends used to laugh at me. They used to say, Anna, do you know why you are endowed back there? I asked them why. They said, because when God was creating you, you must have been the last on the line. And God was using clay. So God created you, Then God said, my child, you can go. Then God realized, hey, there's some clay left. He just plastered on your behind. And then they start laughing, but I say, but guess who's laughing now?
So you got extra clay.
Yes, I got extra clay because now the last shall be first. Because now women everywhere are looking for big butts, big hips, full lips, but look at us, African women, endowed with natural beauty. Can I get an amen in the morning? Yes.
Oh my goodness. Anna, do you find your own jokes funny? Because I think you are so funny sometimes. I'm like, I wonder if she laughs at her own jokes too.
Yes. As a comedian, you have to laugh at your own jokes before you put them out there. If you don't, because if you don't like it,
somebody, okay.
How are they going to
Even
like
before
it?
the show starts, I was laughing just looking at her. I was laughing.
So you have to like it yourself. You have to feel like, and sometimes when you're creating, you have to be in your corner and be like, this might not hit right. How can I make it, And then when you find yourself smiling, you're like,
this is it.
This is it, yes.
I think it's also the energy. Because when you come with the energy, people start laughing before they even hear anything you have to say.
Yes.
The energy is already pulling them in.
The energy is important, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, African female comedians have made significant contribution to the world of comedy on the continent using their unique perspective and experiences to entertain their audiences as well as to challenge stereotypes. They bring laughter to the stage, television, and offline and online platforms, crafting humor and in their storytelling skills. But before we go any further into today's show, we would like to highlight a few female comedians we find to be outstanding. One notable African female comedian advocating for social issues is Njambi McGarth. Born in Kenya and based in the UK, she uses her talent to shed light on important social and political issues such as colonization with boldness. Another one is Kansime Ann from Uganda. She's a comic and actress who's been referred to as Africa's Queen of Comedy by some media outlets. She's not only entertaining, but also tackles topics such as gender roles, relationship, and cultural norms while challenging stereotypes and advocating for gender equality in her country. Also, hailing from Nigeria is Gloria Olurotombi, better known as Maraji, a comedian and social media personality. She started her career making lip-sync videos and mimicking songs. Maraji role-plays in her comedy skits and switches between accents and vocal pitches to catch her audience. Now, this week on Our Voices, we'll take a look at several more African female stand-up comedians who are making their mark in this genre of entertainment, while also advocating for what they believe makes our society a better place.
Well, we are going to start the show in Burkina Faso. We have shown you a story in the past, but it's still relevant to today's conversation. Burkina Faso has a growing comedy scene. Despite the international popularity of French Burkinabe comedian Rukita Ouedraogo, the genre there still is dominated by men. Claire McDougall reports from Ouagadougou.
Rukita Ouedraogo helped bridge the gap between French and Burkinabe comedy, becoming known in France and famous in her home country. But Burkina Faso's comedy scene is dominated by men in a country where women are expected to be housewives. The organizer of Ouagadougou's annual Festival of Laughter and Comedy hopes to change that through training.
All day it is working in the house. For comedy, you need time for reflection, writing good sketches, a good amount of words, to share things you can perform in public.
The country's male comedians train 10 women on scripting, improvisation and performance for the festival. They got support from the Ministry of Culture and Tourism.
There is also a cultural problem. In Burkina Faso, women are more reserved. They aren't so exposed. We want to take this warmth, this comedic oxygen, to say that women can make it.
The women comedians also hope they can help Burkina Faso, a country struggling with insecurity and displacement, to laugh again.
You are displaced without a home. You no longer have your village. You no longer have your parents. You are there, you are sad, almost wishing you were dead. For those who are like that, to offer one moment, a second of laughter, will offer hope.
With the stage set, the show can begin.
There are a lot of things for women to say, and they must become a voice for the voiceless. Women must be part of the comedy scene, because humor has a message.
The experience has brought the women confidence and the possibility of careers as the leading ladies of comedy in Burkina Faso. Claire McDougall for VOA News, Ouagadougou.
Thank you, Claire, for that report. We are here with Anna Mwalago. Anna, let's start. When you started your journey as a comedian here in the US, you had a challenge. Your accent kept coming up as a way to discriminate against you, but you didn't give up. You kept actually using that same topic in your stand-up comedies. Tell us about that. How challenging was that?
Well, actually, back in my country, Kenya, I'm a performing artist. I started way when I was like 8 years old. And at that time I was doing mostly music, poetry, and then in high school I got into a lot of acting. And so even after high school, before going to college, I got into a theater company called Heartstrings Kenya, where we were doing comedy and farces and all that kind of plays. But when I came here, I really didn't want to call myself a comedian because, you know, back in Africa then, this is like 20 years ago, I'm aging myself, comedians were looked like people who are foolish, you know, people who are not smart, you know.
Who are not serious.
Yes, who are not serious. And so I know myself as a performing artist. So coming here, and then I started here as a spoken word artist. So I was doing my poetry, but my poetry was funny. Before I did a poem, I would tell you a scenario and people started laughing. So it's one of my actually videos that made it viral on Facebook because I was performing for the White House officials, and it went all over Africa, or more than 2.1 million views. And they were like, oh, she's so funny, she's a comedian. I was like, oh, I'm a comedian? Yeah. But all this time I call myself a performing artist. I never wanted to say I'm a comedian.
You didn't know how much money comedians make in this country.
Yes. But no, when I found, of course I know now they make a lot of money. But it took some time for me to actually call myself comedian.
Listen.
Yes.
Comedians who keep their accents, I think, are killing it now.
Yes.
Let me give you an example of Anne Kansime. When I listen to Anne Kansime, I want her to keep her accent because, like, one act that really stuck in my head, she's like, you don't want to marry me, eh? You are a risk taker. I remember that one. So every time I said, I hear the word risk taker. I'm like,
No, actually, for me, more than what they say, the accent, the facial expression, and that is funny by itself. That puts an element.
No, the thing is, you have to be original. You have to be authentic. So for me, even though my accent was a problem for some people, to me it wasn't. I used it as my niche because then I knew that I have tapped a market that nobody has. That people will be like, oh, I want to see that African performer, or I want to see that African comedian. And so it went that even people who invited me, well, it's because of my accent. It's because of my authenticity. So, even when I performed, it was because, oh, she's being something different, a new flavor.
So you're inspiring young African girls to keep their identity. Now, what is coming up for you right now that we can look forward to?
Well, we have a wonderful show coming up at the Bowie Performing Arts Center, and it's called Comedy Festival. So this will be mostly African comedians. And I just did an opening for Basket Mouth, who's originally from Nigeria, a very famous comedian, and we opened up for him. And then at the same time, I have my one-woman show called Never Thought I Was Black Till I Came to America.
I feel the same way.
Yes.
I think I'm going to come to that one.
Please, come to any of our shows, be it with the groups of my fellow comedians from different parts of Africa, or my one-woman show, because what we are trying to do is showcase our African values, our culture in a positive light.
So despite the challenges you had, you see your career in the US as a comedian as a success?
Yes, of course it is. Because you see, if it wasn't a success, I would not be touching the many hearts and lives I'm touching. At the same time, young people are coming up and saying, I want to do what other comedians here in the US who are African are doing.
That's amazing. Well, we're going to definitely continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Yes, we will continue the conversation. But now let's take a quick break. When we come back, we will continue our conversation with Anna Mwalago. We will also introduce you to South Africa's Tumi Morake, who will tell us more about the art of comedy for females as a tool for advocacy on issues in our community. We want to ask our audience, who are your favorite female comedians and why? Share your thoughts on our social media platforms at VOA Africa. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Use the hashtag VOA Our Voices. We are also on WhatsApp, and our number is US country code +1 202 503 9025. Stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in...
Welcome back. You're tuned in to Our Voices. We're discussing the contribution of African female comedians in the world of comedy on the continent and in the diaspora. Still here with us is Anna Mwalago. From initially you were talking with us, but now we are welcoming Tumi Morake, comedian and actress from South Africa, who is joining us via Skype from Johannesburg. Tumi is an actress. She's also a stand-up comedian. She's a show host. She's a lot of things. Tumi, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure. Tumi, it is a pleasure indeed to have you. You're originally from South Africa, but now you're also based in Atlanta. Before we begin our discussion, though, we want to hear what some people in Namibia have to say about female comedians. We have first Memory Swords, and then next we'll have Namibia award-winning comedian, the Big Mitch, of course. Then Erikan Nuyoma in our Your Voice segment, and then we'll be back in a second.
When it comes to comedy, our ladies are limited by African culture. It seems there are certain things they cannot say in public or else society labels them.
Namibian comedy actually, we really reached a level that we actually broke through to some of the industries outside, like in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and so on. So it has reached a really mature level at this point where I can say, okay, corporates are also getting into it. But then, we do not have a lot of female comedians. We do not. We have a thing called Last Comic Standing, and we put it out in the newspapers and so on. But then we just don't have a lot of females coming for auditions and so on. So we really do need some female comedians, and there's help out there to also help them to really get the craft right. But they do not come out.
I've actually attended some female comedy shows before, but I don't think women are really addressing the key issues, like gender-based violence and crimes and child abuse and things like that.
I think it's much more about material. It's much more about material because the type of environment that we're in is people really want to have that punchline. And most of the female comedians are really storytellers. Most of them that I've seen, even SA, even in Nigeria, even in Botswana, most of female comedians are really storytellers, and the crowd mostly doesn't react to it because you get about 10 minutes to really perform, and doing storytelling comedy is not gonna work for 8 minutes to 10 minutes. So I think that's it. And one of the other parts is also that it's not really being promoted as much as it should be.
Thank you for everyone who shared their opinions. And in this segment, we are going to be talking about the success of female comedians. Tumi, thank you again for being with us today. You are one of the most successful comedians in the continent, and you make success look so easy. But is it easy to get there, or is it just, your personality?
Oh, it's blind determination. And I think because there's so few of us, it is so much easier to just forge ahead. One would think, the more of you there are, the easier it's going to get. I think for me, rising like this and staying in the industry, besides my own hard work, really is because there were so few of us and my voice was able to stand out. And now you have more and more females coming up. So now it's becoming easier for those who are there aren't enough doing it. So I don't know where to start. Now there's so many of us doing it that it's time for women to just jump on because we've made it easier. I always say to my friends, my performance at any event, be it public, be it corporate, has to be great. Because if it's terrible, no other women are going to be hired. They're not going to say, Tumi Morake was not great. They're going to say, female comedians. You see now, I told you. So I always make sure that I remember that I need to pass the baton. And so they need to see me and go, shoo, we need another woman.
That's amazing. Now, Tumi, we talking about success, and sometimes to be successful, there are some things you kind of have to stay away from or to stick with. Now, let's talk about in countries where people have experienced a lot of trauma, whether it be because of war or because of maybe apartheid in South Africa. Are there some topics and some issues that you are basically a no-go zone for you because, you know, it's offensive, maybe because it brings back unhealed wounds, or are there other jokes that are okay on those particular topics, or do you just wing it and, you know, it's comedy?
If it matters to me, I'll talk about it. You know, it's interesting that in your Voxies, one of the guys said that the problem with women comedians is that they don't address issues like gender-based violence, and I'm thinking, are the male comedians doing it? Come on now. You know, it's interesting when a woman gets on stage, there's such expectation from us. There's half the room going, you shouldn't be there. Then there's half the room going, save the world. And I'm going, brah, I just want to be funny. Can I be funny? So I don't know. I don't have a no-go area. And that's probably why, I mean, someone once said, I'm sure you don't get much corporate work, hey, because you really go there. You really push the envelope. And I said, no, actually, I do get corporate gigs because I'm not an idiot. I know how to read a room, and I know what to say and when not to say it. But coming from a country like South Africa with a lot of pain from apartheid, like you say, we're a very young democracy. And I like to talk about that stuff because I feel like our divisions are about what we don't know about each other more than what we do know and hate about each other. You know, so I like to address the ignorance. I like to poke at that very thing that people are afraid to touch on, because that's the thing that leads to all the outbursts that you see happening on social media, and you read about it in the paper, people throwing out racial slurs. And I say, yeah, that's how constipation works, friend. If you're holding things and holding things and holding things, some point your body's going to want to release it.
Right.
So we need to be honest. We need to engage each other, you know? And that's my comedy. The only no-go zone I give myself really is religion. Okay. And the reason I do that is because I'm not well-versed in religion, and I wouldn't know what point I'm trying to make. So if there's no point, I'm not going to talk about it.
Fair enough, fair enough to me. Now, for you, Anna, as we're talking about success, I mean, you've been in different high-level events. In the Africa Day in New York, you've performed for different events for inauguration for President Obama.
Yes.
Have those moments made you feel like you have arrived and felt confident in your skills, or have you always had the confidence as a comedian?
Well, to be honest with you, any comedian, any performer who hits the stage is nervous before they hit the stage. And they say that's good, gives you the adrenaline, gives you the energy to go out there and do your best. Just like Tumi says, we always feel like we have to represent for the next generation. So whenever you go somewhere, you can never say, oh, I have arrived. The more you feel comfortable, the more you lose the craft. So you always have to sharpen your skills. You always have to feel like you need to do more. You always have to feel like, you know, I have to give back. And so for me, yes, the success is the fact that I am a performing artist. I'm doing this at the international level. I'm reaching audiences all over the world. And not only that, they are laughing, they're enjoying it. And also, I'm sharing my experience, which is valuable to the people that are listening to what I'm doing. So I think the important part is to say that definitely as a poet, as a performer, as Tumi said, you have to be honest and you have to share your experience. And then given the podium, given the stage, you have to shine when that opportunity comes, not only for you, but for the future generation, and also at the same time to entertain people. We do this to make others laugh, and that's the success.
That's amazing.
Tommy, let me come back to you. Talking about success, you have a new Netflix show that is coming out. It's called Honeymoon. Honeymoon, sorry. Tell us about that.
Oh, so the Honeymoon is actually it's on Amazon Prime, and it's a different kind of chick flick. It's an action chick flick that was shot in South Africa and in Zanzibar, and it just tells the story of these three women. You know, like I live, breathe, eat comedy. So a lot of my work, my body of work, is centered around comedy, and so I got to work on this project since before COVID. And it's really, it's such a wild romp, because I feel like also in terms of the representation of African women on television, it's such a refreshing film, you know? So, yeah.
Yes, and what about Seriously Single?
Oh, seriously single, man. My heart sang. So before I got into stand-up comedy, funny enough, the acting got me into stand-up.
Okay.
And Seriously Single was a film that a very good friend of mine had, on her slate. And she was like, man, I see this character, and for some reason I see you. I was like, bring it, girl, bring it.
Oh, my
Because
goodness.
also I feel like us thick girls don't get lead roles a lot. So when someone comes to you with a leading role, you jump at it with both hands. And that was great.
You make you look so good. Your personality, your vibe. Definitely you make African female comedians look so much fun. You remind me actually of one of my best friends from Zimbabwe named Emma Mwendo.
Oh.
Her energy, just the way you come out. I think when I look at you on YouTube, I'm already laughing. I'm like, what is Tumi going to say this time?
And also, I think one of the things people agree about you, Tumi, is that you are a very free-spirited comedian, and as you said, your no-go zone is very limited. But I have a question for you. How do you balance that boundary of, pushing the boundary and at the same time, delivering jokes while respecting people's,
maybe religion?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, for me, I can't speak for other comedians. For me, is what am I trying to say? Sometimes I don't have a message. I'm literally just trying to tickle you. But if I'm going to speak to something that goes into people's pain and reality, I have to have a point. I do comedy about myself as a mother because genuinely, I don't think I'm a natural mother. I'm a fertile woman, not a mother. They're not the same thing.
I guess we have to end it there because I'm thinking about the joke that you told last time about picking the nanny that your husband is not going to want. They can go on YouTube and watch that. So that's our show for this week, everyone. Well, actually, you know what? We want to also hear one last joke, maybe, from Anna.
Lord. Okay, fine. Well, if you want to hear a joke that I always talk about is, the culture shock that we as Americans, Africans experience here in America, And for me, that was the chicken, The Popeye chicken was just too much,
They can go on your YouTube.
Yes. And
Mama Africa, right?
You go on my YouTube, Mama Africa Anna, and you will see more
That's
of
our
my
show
wife.
for this week, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching. We were here in the studio with Anna Molago, and Tumi Morake was with us as well. Thank you.